We got to make sure that we achieve independence in all these areas and that we make China more reliant on us in a lot of these areas, particularly semiconductors, which are so essential, of course, to AI applications and the modern economy. And on top of that, we got to make sure that we're investing in the right things in our military. We got to get back to the basics and start investing in numerous numbers of missiles, air defense systems, ships. We need quantity over quality at this point.
What do we do here, Dmitri? I'm worried. Okay, I'm worried that we've got ideological leadership. We've got sclerotic leadership. I'm going to say something that as a Russian, you're American, but you were raised in Russia. You know a lot about Russian culture, so you're going to not like. I feel like we're in an oligarchic duopoly now, where the power structure is just circulating among Washington elite, and they are spending money recklessly, and they are currying favor with lobbyists. And we've got big food convincing them to destroy our food, so we're a lot fatter. We got big pharma convincing them to let us take and use experimental drugs and vaccines. We've got big military where the planes are falling out of the sky, but they just hand us the money, and there's a $2 trillion situation going on at the Pentagon where we don't even know where the money is, and there's nobody ever going to audit it. Any of this make you worried, or you're not worried about any of this? And if you're not, tell us why.
Well, there's no question that we have a lot of problems. We're very divided. We have all these issues you mentioned, but the book is actually very optimistic because it argues that we're much stronger than we think that we are, and that China is much weaker. We are in the new Cold War, and I make the case how this Cold War is actually very similar to the first Cold War, but China is actually much weaker than the Soviet Union ever was. It doesn't have the Warsaw Pact. It doesn't have the military strength and the global power projection that the Soviet Union has. It doesn't have the attractiveness of ideology that the Soviets had for the first, at least part of the Cold War with communism, and on and on and on. It does have a bigger economy, but even that is diminishing, as you well know, with the Chinese growth stagnating, huge issues with their real estate market and the bubble that's there. By the way, in 2008, at the height of our crisis, real estate was 10% of our GDP. It is 30% in China, just enormous in terms of the impact that that's going to have to drag their economy down. They have the population collapse that's taking place. They're going to go from about 1.4 billion people they have today to 550 million or so by the end of the century, just unimaginable and unprecedented human history. So we have all these advantages. We have the greatest allies in the world, greatest military, despite all the issues. So this is doable. We can deter China. And this is what we ultimately need to do, right? There are three possibilities here. First possibility is that the Goldilocks scenario, that they never even try because they become convinced that it's impossible and the risks to them are too high, or they go for it and they win or lose. And I argue that those two, regardless of what happens, I mean, obviously it's better for them to lose, but it's a disaster, right? $10 trillion of market value wiped out, not to mention the risk of nuclear conflict. We've never fought kinetically a nuclear power before, and ideally we won't. The loss of American lives is something we haven't seen probably since World War II, maybe even greater on a daily basis. So this has to be prevented. We have to deter them, and we have to do everything possible, militarily, economically, diplomatically, because his strategy is going to be, how do I keep the U.S. out of it? Because he knows that if we won't intervene, Taiwan is screwed, right? They don't have the capabilities to defend themselves on their own. They need our help. And using economic leverage, trying to make sure that we're reliant on China for critical minerals like rare earths and lithium and cobalt and so forth, reliant on them on semiconductors, which they're trying to achieve right now, reliant on them for EVs, batteries, solar panels, wind turbines, and the like, as we're transitioning to green energy, and reliant economically in every other respect. He's going to think that may help deter us from engaging and just accepting that Taiwan is going to fall to China. That's what we've got to prevent. We've got to make sure that we achieve independence in all these areas and that we make China more reliant on us in a lot of these areas, particularly semiconductors, which are so essential, of course, to AI applications and the modern economy. And on top of that, we got to make sure that we're investing in the right things in our military. I argue that we've been too enamored with these really exquisite but incredibly expensive platforms. These aircraft carriers that cost $14 billion now. The last generation, the Nimitz class aircraft carrier, was 4. The 4 class is 14. I argue that we don't have 3.5 times the value that we're getting for that 14 billion. We got to get back to the basics and start investing in mass, numerous numbers of missiles, air defense systems, mines, ships. We need quantity over quality at this point.
If Donald Trump wins this election, is that good or bad for this problem that you're writing about in the book?
Well, that's a hard question. I'm not sure even Donald Trump could answer it. He's made statements that Taiwan doesn't matter, that, they're right off the coast of China. China should just have it. But, he's also taken a very strong anti-China position during the course of his administration, as you know. So, the benefit that Trump has is this sort of crazy man strategy that Nixon applied and Trump applied as well, where, we saw this with Soleimani, right? The military presented him with 3 options. They thought that this crazy option of killing Soleimani it was just thrown in, thinking that he would never take it. And he's like, oh, I like that one, right? So no one knows what he's going to do, which makes it very dangerous for them. So there's deterrent value there. But, if he does say, well, China, I'll make a deal for you for, buying your soybeans. I'll just let you have Taiwan. That would be a problem. Unclear what he's going to do. I don't think he even knows.